Get that filthy cart out of my dormway.
Garrett Holloway did not even look at her face. The black woman in the gray uniform stopped. She lowered her eyes.
I said move. Are you slow?
She did not answer. She just held the handle of her cart. He turned to the room.
Does anyone in here speak actual Mandarin? Anyone?
Silence. He spun back to her and laughed.
Not you, sweetheart. Go mop a bathroom.
She lifted her head, slowly, quietly. She raised her hand.
I do, sir.
The whole office froze. Garrett's smile died on his face. Rewind 90 minutes. 6 o'clock. Bianca Reeves clocked in at the service entrance. Her uniform smelled like industrial lemon. She nodded at Hank, the night security guard. He smiled and said her name back. He was one of only 2 people in this building who knew it. She took the service elevator up to the 52nd floor, the partner suites. The view from those windows cost more per square foot than her entire apartment. The floor was loud for a Tuesday. Conference lights blazing, catering trays by the elevator, voices sharp behind glass walls. She pushed her cart past the printer alcove, and then she stopped. 3 documents sat in the output tray, Mandarin on the left, English on the right, Hangzhou Solaris Group across the top. She did not mean to read them. Her eyes just landed. 2 seconds, that was all. She picked up the top page. "That is wrong," she said, almost to herself. She read it again. "That is very wrong." The Mandarin clause used the legal term for force majeure. The English had translated it as an inevitable event. In a $600 million contract, those 2 phrases meant completely different things. One meant nobody pays when disaster strikes. The other meant somebody always pays. She set the page down, carefully. The thin green chain at her collar caught the light for half a second. A small jade pendant, a single Chinese character carved into it. Then it slipped back under her uniform. Inside the conference room, a man's voice rose. "Tell them the language is non-negotiable. Send it." The printer hummed. A new page slid out. The wrong word, going to Hangzhou. She gripped her cart. She thought about her daughter, 7 years old, asleep at her cousin's place in the Bronx. She thought about the man inside that room, the one who had not looked at her face, and she thought about what it would cost her to open her mouth. She kept walking. Behind her, the wrong word was already crossing the ocean. What do you do when you know something is broken and nobody in that room would ever believe you? Back to 742. Back to the doorway. Bianca's question hung in the air. Mandarin or Cantonese? Spoken in a language nobody in that room expected to come out of her mouth. Garrett Holloway's smile was still half on his face, frozen there. He had not finished his last insult yet. His mouth was open. A junior paralegal named Tessa Brennan stopped typing. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. One of the associates lowered his phone. Then the speakerphone crackled. A woman's voice came through, crisp, sharp, Beijing accented. She answered Bianca in Mandarin first. Then she switched to English. "Mandarin, please continue, and whoever just spoke, stay on the line." Garrett snapped back to life. "Ma'am, that was just the cleaning staff. We have a certified translator right here. Preston, our—" The voice cut him off. "Your certified translator just told us our chairman's name was Mr. Wei. His name is Wei. 2 letters. 20 minutes of our chairman being personally insulted. Put the woman with the card on." The room went silent. Bianca did not move at first. She looked at the speakerphone. Then she looked at Garrett. Then she looked at the doorway behind her, like she was checking if she was allowed. A woman walked in from the partners' hallway. Older, silver hair, black suit. Eleanor Whitfield, managing partner. The granddaughter of the man whose name was on the building. She had heard the noise from her office. She did not say anything. She just nodded at Bianca. Once. Bianca stepped into the conference room. She did not sit. She stood beside the table, hands folded in front of her uniform, and she spoke. She spoke for 90 seconds straight, in Mandarin. The narrator will tell you what she said, because every word matters. She introduced the firm again, properly. She apologized for the way the chairman's name had been mispronounced for the past hour. She used the correct tone on his name. The fourth tone, the one that sounds like a small bow. She confirmed the agenda. She listed the 4 items the Chinese side had come to the table to discuss. And then she gently, carefully, retranslated the disputed clause, the one about force majeure. She used the exact legal phrase the Chinese contract code requires. Her voice changed when she spoke that language. Lower, slower. Each word is given its full weight. The hum of the air conditioning seemed to drop away. Preston Caldwell, the certified translator, was holding a pen. He had been checking her Mandarin against his own notes. After 30 seconds, he stopped checking. After 60 seconds, he set the pen down. After 90 seconds, he whispered, just loud enough for the people next to him to hear. Jesus Christ. Bianca finished. The voice on the speakerphone came back. This time, the Chinese side's own translator. A man named Lin Yiwen. He spoke directly to the room, in English, slowly, so nothing would be missed. For the record, this woman's Mandarin is better than most graduate students I have interviewed in Beijing. Her legal vocabulary is exact. Where did you find her? Garrett's voice came out small. She works here. As what? Silence. The kind of silence that has a weight to it. The kind that presses on people's chests. Eleanor Whitfield finally spoke. She was looking at the speakerphone, but her words were aimed at every single person in that room. As, apparently, the only person in this firm currently qualified to handle your account. Please give us 5 minutes. She closed the line. She turned to Bianca. What is your name? Bianca Reeves, ma'am? Ms. Reeves, would you sit down, please? Bianca looked at the chair Eleanor was pointing to. A leather chair, the kind she had wiped down 1,000 times. She sat. Garrett Holloway was still standing. His tie was crooked now. He had not noticed. He was looking at Bianca, really looking. For the first time since she had walked past his door 6 years ago. And the question was already forming in every mind at that table. If she could do this, what else had they missed? Eleanor Whitfield stood up. She looked around the conference room. 12 associates, 2 paralegals, 1 certified translator with his pen on the floor, and 1 woman in a gray uniform sitting in a leather chair for the first time in her life. Everyone out, except Ms. Reeves and Mr. Caldwell. 15 minutes. Nobody argued. Garrett Holloway moved toward the door, slowly. He looked back, twice. Eleanor did not look at him. The door closed. The room was suddenly very quiet. And to understand why a 34-year-old janitor in the Bronx could speak better Mandarin than a man with a graduate degree from Wharton, you have to go back. Back to a third-floor walk-up on Tremont Avenue. 1999. Bianca was 9 years old. Her mother had just been hospitalized for the second time that year. The state placed her with a foster grandmother, a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Liang, Taiwanese-American widow, lived alone in a small kitchen that always smelled like star anise and rice cooker steam. Mrs. Liang did not call it a language class. She just spoke Mandarin to Bianca every day, from the first morning. When Bianca did not understand, Mrs. Liang pointed at things: the teapot, the window, the cat. She said the word in Mandarin. She waited. Bianca said it back. That was the lesson. 8 years of it. Cantonese on Sundays, classical Chinese poetry on Mrs. Liang's birthday, not on Bianca's birthday, on hers. Because, as Mrs. Liang told her, a teacher's birthday is when the student gives the gift. When Bianca was 14, Mrs. Liang took a small jade pendant out of a wooden box. She clipped it around Bianca's neck. She spoke in Mandarin, the way she always did. She said the character on the pendant meant peace. She said, "So wherever you go, and whatever they call you, you carry a name they cannot take." Bianca was 17 when Mrs. Liang died. She went back into the system, aged out at 18, enrolled at Lehman College as a linguistics major. 3.87 GPA. She dropped out junior year when her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. She took the night janitor job at Whitfield and Hale because the hours let her care for her mother during the day. Her mother died 11 months later. By then, Bianca was already pregnant with Naomi. She kept the job. For 6 years, she had walked these hallways. For 6 years, she had emptied these recycling bins. For 6 years, she had quietly read every Mandarin document the firm threw away. For 6 years, she had watched Preston Caldwell mistranslate twice a week, every week, for 19 months. She had never said a word, because nobody had ever asked. In the conference room, Eleanor Whitfield was watching Bianca's hand. Bianca did not know it, but her fingers had drifted up to her collar, to the small green pendant under the gray uniform, the one Mrs. Liang had given her 20 years ago. The character on it meant peace, a name they cannot take. Eleanor walked to the front of the room. She picked up a remote. The wall screen lit up. The Hangzhou Solaris term sheet appeared. 22 pages. Bilingual columns. Miss Reeves, walk me through the differences between the English column and the Chinese column. Out loud. Now. Bianca looked at the screen. Garrett Holloway was watching from the hallway. He had not actually left. He stepped back into the doorway. Eleanor, with respect, Preston has already reviewed the... Eleanor did not look at him. Garrett, sit down. He sat. It was the first time anyone in that office had told Garrett Holloway to sit down in 3 years. The crack in his authority was small, but it was there. Bianca stood up. She walked to the screen. She did not ask permission. She started on page 1. This phrase here, the Mandarin says force majeure. The English says inevitable event. Those are not the same. One protects both sides equally. The other protects only the side that drafted it. 11 minutes. That was how long it took her. She found 4 problems. The force majeure mistake. Already known. A clause where the English said reasonable best efforts. The Mandarin said something stronger. something that, in Chinese contract law, meant absolute obligation. No flexibility, no exceptions. In a Beijing court, Bianca said, that one phrase costs you $80 million. Eleanor's face did not change, but her pen had stopped moving. The chairman's name, spelled 3 different ways in the same document. This is not a typo. To them, this is disrespect. Repeated 3 times in the same paragraph. And the governing law clause. The English said Hong Kong arbitration. The Mandarin said mainland Chinese arbitration. Bianca turned away from the screen. If this contract had been signed tonight, both sides could have walked away on day 1. Neither court would have stopped them. The deal would have died before the wire transfer cleared. Silence. Preston Caldwell was sitting against the wall. His tie was loose. He cleared his throat. Eleanor, she is right on all 4. I missed all 4. Eleanor turned to him slowly. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. That will be noted. She turned back to Bianca. Ms. Reeves, how long would it take you to redraft this document? Correctly. Bianca thought for a second. With access to a printer and a quiet room, about 3 hours. You have 90 minutes. The room held its breath. Bianca did not flinch. Yes, ma'am. Eleanor pointed down the hallway. Take the corner office on the south side. It's empty. Tessa Brennan will bring you anything you need. Coffee, files, the original Mandarin draft from Hangzhou's side. Go. Bianca walked out of the conference room. She did not run. She did not rush. But for the first time in 6 years inside that building, when she passed the rows of empty desks, her hands were not pushing a cart. They were carrying a contract. She reached the corner office. The lights were off. She turned them on. There was a leather chair behind the desk, the kind she had wiped down 1,000 times, the kind she had never sat in. She sat in it. She paused for 1 second to look out the window. Manhattan was lit up below her, 49 floors of glass and light. She had cleaned this view 100 times. She had never actually seen it. Then she opened the document, and she started to work. Outside in the hallway, Garrett Holloway was on his phone, voice low, voice urgent. He was talking to someone in human resources. He was not trying to save the deal anymore. He was trying to save himself. 90 floors below, a $600 million contract was bleeding out. 90 feet down the hall, a man was already deciding whose hands it was going to die in. Garrett Holloway pulled Caroline Pemberton into the small conference room next to the elevators. Head of Human Resources, 22 years at the firm. Cautious woman. He closed the door. Caroline, we have a problem. Eleanor authorized it, Garrett. I know what Eleanor authorized. I'm telling you why it is a problem. He started counting on his fingers. 1. Liability. A non-credentialed staff member is touching client documents. Our insurance is exposed. 2. Optics. What does it look like to Hangzhou that we sent a janitor to redraft their contract? 3. Boundaries. If we let her do this once, every cleaner in this building thinks they can walk into a partner meeting. He leaned in. Voice dropped. Caroline, we both know how this ends. She fumbles, the deal dies, and I get blamed. He let it sit. Eleanor is 62. She is sentimental. You are HR. You know the difference. Caroline looked at the floor. Let me think. Down the hall, Bianca was typing. She did not know any of this, but the building was telling her, in small ways, exactly what it thought of her. Two associates walked past the open door. One said, loud enough for her to hear, "They're really letting anybody in here tonight." She did not look up. The catering manager came in. He glanced at her, glanced at the trays. "Hey, can you clear those before you leave the floor?" "Thanks." She was visibly typing on a partner's computer. He still asked. She nodded, did not stop. A man from facilities knocked. "Ma'am, this office is reserved. You'll need to relocate." Bianca handed him her phone. The email from Eleanor open on the screen. He read it twice. His face changed. Huh. He walked away. He did not apologize. Bianca kept typing. Her hands did not shake. Then someone else appeared in the doorway. Tessa Brennan, the junior paralegal. The one who, 2 years ago, had been the only person in this building to ever say thank you when Bianca refilled the coffee station. Tessa was holding two things: a fresh cup of coffee, the real coffee from the partners' floor, and a printed copy of the Hangzhou Solaris corporate org chart. She set both down on the desk. She did not make a speech. She said one sentence. "You've got this, Ms. Reeves." And she left. Bianca looked at the coffee. She looked at the org chart. She did not cry. She had spent 25 years learning not to cry in white people's offices. But her hand drifted up to the small green pendant under her collar. She held it for 1 second. Then she put her hand back on the keyboard, and she typed faster. Down the hall, Garrett was still on the phone. The clock above the elevator read 7 minutes past 9. She had 43 minutes left. 83 minutes in. Bianca walked back into conference room 52C, carrying a printed red line. 22 pages, every change tracked. Marginal notes in both English and Mandarin explaining why each change was made. She did not announce herself. She did not knock. She walked to the head of the table. She placed one copy in front of Eleanor, one in front of Preston Caldwell, one in front of Garrett Holloway. She sat down, in the same chair Eleanor had pointed her to 90 minutes earlier. Garrett opened his mouth. Eleanor lifted one finger. He closed it. "Reopen the line," Eleanor said. The speakerphone clicked. This time it was not just the general counsel on the other end. Chairman Wei Jianhong himself was on the call. His translator, Lin Yi-Wen, sat beside him. The red line appeared on the shared screen. Bianca began. She walked the Hangzhou side through the red line, in Mandarin. 40 minutes of it. Every clause, every change, every reason. She handled every question. She did not flinch. She did not stall. Then Chairman Wei asked her something extra, something nobody else in the room understood, because he asked it in the older, formal Mandarin of his generation. He read aloud one line from the contract preamble, a line written in classical-style phrasing. "Miss Reeves," he said, "do you recognize this line?" Bianca did. She quoted the next line back to him. From memory. It was from a Tang Dynasty poem, the kind of poem his grandfather used to recite at the dinner table. There was a long pause on the speakerphone. Then Chairman Wei laughed, a short, surprised laugh, the kind of laugh a man makes when something unexpected and good has just happened. Then Yi-Wen, the translator, switched to English. He spoke directly to the room. I am formally noting in the meeting record, Ms. Bianca Reeves is the most competent Mandarin language counterparty Whitfield and Hale has ever placed in front of us. We would like her on every future call. Chairman Wei added, slowly, in English, and we would like the contract finished. Tonight. Yes. The room exhaled. Garrett let out a sound, a small, involuntary breath. The sound of a man who had been holding his lungs shut for an hour. Then, automatically, like a reflex, he tried to take the moment back. Wonderful. Mr. Wei, I will have my team finalize the documentation and we'll... Eleanor lifted her finger again. Without looking at him, he stopped talking. $620 million. That was the deal. Just under $9 million. That was the firm's fee on closing. $21.40. That was what Bianca Reeves had been making per hour 2 hours ago, cleaning the room she was now sitting in. Eleanor closed the line. She turned to Bianca. Ms. Reeves, we need to talk, but not tonight. She paused. Tonight, you go home. You hug your daughter. You sleep. Be in my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bianca nodded. She stood up. She walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, past the rows of empty desks, past the printer where, 2.5 hours ago, she had read a single mistranslated word. She picked up her cleaning cart from where she had left it. She was still on shift. She was paid until 2 a.m. So she finished vacuuming the 52nd floor, the partners' suites. The corner office she had just been working in. The conference room where, 40 minutes ago, the chairman of a $4 billion Chinese conglomerate had just asked for her by name. She vacuumed all of it. She clocked out at 2:03 a.m. She took the train home. 9 a.m. the next morning. Eleanor Whitfield's corner office, 48th floor. The view that morning was clean and gray, the river flat under early light. Bianca was wearing the only blazer she owned, black, a little too big in the shoulders, borrowed from a cousin 2 years ago for a funeral. Eleanor noticed. She did not comment. There was a manila folder open on her desk, Bianca's HR file, the one that had been sitting in the firm's system for 6 years, the one nobody had ever opened. Eleanor turned the folder around so Bianca could see it. Linguistics major, Lehman College, 3.87 GPA before withdrawal. A recommendation letter from Professor Anders Holm calling you, and I am quoting him directly, the most naturally gifted language student he had taught in 26 years. Eleanor closed the folder. This file has been in our system since the year my granddaughter was born. We have had it for 6 years, Ms. Reeves. Not one person opened it. She paused. That is our failure, not yours. Bianca did not respond. She just watched. Eleanor slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. This is an offer. Senior Cross-Cultural Counsel, Asia Pacific Desk. Base salary, $185,000. Full benefits. Tuition reimbursement to finish your JD at night at Fordham Law. Effective immediately. Bianca looked at the page. She did not pick it up. Not yet. She had spent 25 years learning not to cry in white people's offices. She did not cry now, but her hand drifted, once, to the small green pendant under her collar, and then back down to her lap. Miss Whitfield, I will accept. Eleanor nodded. But I want one thing in writing first. Eleanor set down her pen. Name it. Bianca's voice did not rise. It did not shake. Every cleaning staff resume in your HR system gets opened, read by an actual person, within 30 days. I do not want to be the exception. She paused. I want to be the reason there is not one. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her pen. Done. She wrote it directly into the offer letter, right under the salary line, in her own handwriting. She called Caroline Pemberton in to witness. Caroline came in. She looked at the document. She looked at Bianca. Then she looked at the offer letter again, slowly, and signed her name on the witness line. Whatever Caroline had been about to do the night before, she did not do now. Eleanor folded her hands. There is one more thing, Miss Reeves. She glanced down at the green chain at Bianca's collar. May I ask what the character is? Bianca touched the pendant, held it for a second. It means peace. A woman gave it to me when I was 14. She told me to carry a name they could not take. Eleanor's voice softened. She was right. Bianca almost smiled. Not quite. Eleanor stood up. She extended her hand across the desk. Welcome to the firm, Miss Reeves. Bianca shook it. Eleanor sat back down. She slid one more piece of paper across the desk. One last item. It was a travel itinerary. Hangzhou Solaris had requested Bianca personally for the closing dinner in Hangzhou, 2 weeks from today. Coach is fine, I assume? For the first time in the entire script, Bianca Reeves smiled. A small smile. A real one. First class is fine too, ma'am. That night, Mott Haven, the Bronx. Bianca's apartment was on the 4th floor of a walk-up on Cypress Avenue. 1 bedroom, a kitchen that opened straight into the living room, a window that faced the back of another building. She was making instant noodles at the counter, the chicken kind, the kind that comes in a paper cup for 69 cents. Her daughter Naomi was sitting on a stool at the same counter, 7 years old, doing her homework, spelling words. The pencil was too big for her hand. The refrigerator buzzed. The radiator clicked. There was a sticky note on the cabinet that said, "Groceries, Tuesday," in Bianca's handwriting. Bianca had not told Naomi yet. She did not know how. She had spent 25 years not making promises she could not keep. Naomi looked up from her spelling words. "Mama, what's a salary?" Bianca paused, spoon halfway to the cup. "Where did you hear that word?" "School. Mrs. Donnelly said her husband got one." Bianca smiled. She set the spoon down. A salary is when somebody pays you the same amount every month, no matter what. Naomi thought about that. "Do you have one?" Bianca looked at her daughter. The pencil, the spelling words, the kitchen. "Starting next Monday." "Yes, baby, I do." Naomi nodded, like she was filing the information away. Then she looked back down at her homework. "Cool. Can we get the cereal with the marshmallows in it now?" Bianca laughed, a real laugh, the first one in this whole story. "Yeah, Naomi, we can get the cereal with the marshmallows." The phone rang. Bianca picked it up. Tessa Brennan, the junior paralegal. She was not calling from the office. She was calling from her own apartment, on her own time. She said one sentence. "Ms. Reeves, I just heard. I am so happy I cannot sleep. That is all. Good night." She hung up. Bianca held the phone for a second longer than she needed to. After dinner, she sat on the couch with Naomi. She reached up to her own neck. She unclipped the small jade pendant, the one Mrs. Liang had given her 20 years ago. The one she had worn every single shift, every single day, for 2 decades. She held it in her palm. She looked at it. Then she turned to her daughter. Naomi, this was given to me by a woman named Mrs. Liang when I was a little older than you. Naomi looked at the pendant, curious. I think it is time it lived on your neck for a while. She held it up. The character on it means peace. It means nobody can take your name from you. Naomi was quiet, serious in the way only a 7-year-old can be. Even at school? Bianca's voice cracked, just a little, just on one word. Especially at school. She clipped the pendant around Naomi's neck. The chain was a little long on her. It fell to the middle of her chest. Naomi touched it. She looked at it. Then she looked back up at her mother. Okay, Mama. That was all she said. She fell asleep on the couch 20 minutes later, the pendant in her small fist. Her spelling homework is still on the kitchen counter. Bianca pulled a blanket up to her daughter's chin. She sat in the dark for a long minute. She did not cry. She had spent 25 years learning not to. But she sat there, with her hand resting lightly on Naomi's small back, feeling the rise and fall of her breathing. 2 weeks from this moment, she would walk into a closing dinner in Hangzhou wearing a different blazer. She would shake hands with men whose names were on buildings. She would speak Mandarin to a chairman whose grandfather had been a translator. But the woman in this dark living room, with her hand on her daughter's back, that was already her. It always had been. 2 weeks later, Hangzhou, China, the Amanfayun Resort. A private banquet hall built into a restored tea village courtyard. Stone walls, wooden beams, lanterns hanging from a beam too low for tall men. 22 people at one long table, Chairman Wei Jianhong at the head, his entire executive board down one side, 3 government observers from the Provincial Commerce Bureau in dark suits at the far end, Ms. Fang Lihua, his general counsel, Lin Yiwen, his translator, and on the other side, Eleanor Whitfield, Tessa Brennan, Garrett Holloway, and Bianca Reeves. Yes, Garrett was still on the deal team. Barely. He had been placed on a 60-day internal probation after the firm's emergency review. He had kept his title. For now. He sat 3 seats down from Bianca. He had not said a word to her since New York. Bianca was wearing a dark green silk blazer. She had bought it at a second-hand shop in Manhattan for $68. She had taken it to a tailor on Burnside Avenue and had it fitted. The jade pendant was not at her neck. It was 3,000 miles away, on her daughter's chest, in a small bedroom in the Bronx. In its place, she wore a small enamel pin, a character. Mrs. Liang's daughter had mailed it to her after seeing the firm's announcement in the news. It meant, teacher. Chairman Wei stood up before dinner began. He spoke in Mandarin first, then in English. Tonight, he said, we are not only signing one contract. He paused. He let the room understand. Hangzhou Solaris is also choosing an exclusive Asia-Pacific legal partner, a 5-year retainer, $240 million over the term. He gestured to the far end of the table. I have invited 2 competitor firms to dinner. They are also at this table. Whitfield and Hale will earn this tonight, or lose this tonight. The two senior partners from the rival firms smiled politely. One of them adjusted his cuff. Eleanor Whitfield did not move. Garrett Holloway turned slightly green. Bianca Reeves picked up her teacup. She took a small sip. She set it down. She folded her hands in her lap. Dinner began. 40 minutes in, Ms. Fang Lihua slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It came to rest in front of Bianca's plate. "Ms. Reeves, a small test." The room quieted. "Translate this aloud, into English, for the table. Right now. No dictionary." Bianca picked up the page. She looked at it. It was a passage of classical Chinese legal text, 16th century Ming Dynasty commercial code. The kind of language no living lawyer is expected to handle cold. The kind of language Bianca had not seen since Mrs. Liang had read poetry to her at the kitchen table at 14. The senior partners from the rival firms relaxed visibly. One of them leaned back in his chair. He was already preparing his face for the polite condolence smile. Garrett Holloway looked at Bianca. For the first time in the entire story, his face did not show contempt. It showed worry. Worry for her, not for himself. 2 weeks of probation had done something small to him. The script will not redeem him. But it noted the change. Bianca read the passage once, silently. She set the page back down on the white tablecloth, carefully, like she had set down the printer page in the hallway 2 weeks ago. She did not pick it up again. She looked up at the table, Chairman Wei, at Ms. Fang, at the room. And she began to translate. She did not look at the page. She translated for 4 straight minutes. The room did not move. A waiter, mid-pour, froze with the wine bottle tilted. Eleanor set her chopsticks down. The two competitor partners stopped smiling. She did not just translate the words. She translated the rhythm, the cadence, the formal weight of the 16th century phrasing. Her English came out as if it had been written by a Supreme Court justice from another century. Where the original used an archaic Ming-era idiom about merchants and mountains, she rendered it as, "A merchant who hides his measure cannot be trusted with the road that carries him." Lin Yiwen's eyes filled. Briefly. He looked down at his plate. Bianca finished the translation. Then she looked directly at Chairman Wei. She switched to Mandarin. The narrator will tell you exactly what she said, because every word matters. She said, "Chairman, forgive my directness. This passage was not only a test." She paused. "It was also an invitation. I accept." The room held its breath. Chairman Wei stood up. He did not speak right away. He walked, the full length of the banquet table, past his own board, past the government observers, past Eleanor Whitfield, past Garrett Holloway. He stopped behind Bianca's chair. He did not sit down. He addressed the entire room, in Mandarin first, then in English, slowly, so nothing would be missed by anyone. "My grandfather was a translator." He paused. He worked for the British in Shanghai in the year 1930. He told me, before he died, that the hardest thing in his profession was not learning the words. Pause. It was being seen as the person who knew them. He looked down at the back of Bianca's head. He died at 71. He had never been called Mr. Wei by his own employer. Only boy. Silence. Tonight I came to this table to sign one contract. I will sign two, both of them, with the firm that placed Ms. Reeves in this chair. He paused again. And I will place her name first on the signature line, above mine, above Ms. Whitfield's. He drew a breath. Because in my country, the translator is the bridge. He looked at her. And tonight, this woman is the bridge. Then Chairman Wei Jianhong, 68 years old, chairman of a $4 billion conglomerate, bowed, a full bow, from the waist, formal, the kind of bow a son gives at his father's grave. Lin Yiwen, the translator, leaned over to the two competitor senior partners at the far end of the table. He explained, very quietly, in English, what they had just witnessed, the cultural weight of it. A Chinese chairman bowing to a translator at his own table in his own country. Their faces changed. Bianca stood up. She returned the bow, slightly less deep than his, as cultural protocol required. She did not speak. Eleanor Whitfield turned her head a quarter of an inch toward Garrett. Her voice was barely audible. "Garrett, stand up. You will applaud her, and you will mean it." Garrett stood. He brought his hands together. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the entire room was applauding. Chairman Wei returned to his seat. As he passed, he said one more thing to Bianca, almost an afterthought, almost casual. "Miss Reeves, after dinner, my chief of staff will give you something. It is from my mother," she insisted. She watched the call from 2 weeks ago. He smiled, just a small one. She has been waiting 2 weeks to send it. After dinner, Chairman Wei's chief of staff approached Bianca's chair with a small lacquered box, black with gold trim. He placed it in her hands. From the chairman's mother, Wei Ai-ying, 86 years old. She watched the conference call from her apartment in Hangzhou 2 weeks ago. Bianca opened the box. Inside was a jade pendant, a small one, a single Chinese character carved into the surface. The character meant teacher. The chief of staff explained, quietly, so only Bianca could hear. Ming Dynasty, carved by an artisan from the chairman's mother's home village. It has been in their family for 400 years. She said it was time it left the family. There was a folded piece of paper inside the box, handwritten in Mandarin. Bianca read it. It said, "To the woman who was made invisible so that she could see everything. From one teacher to another. Wei Ai-ying, age 86." Bianca held the pendant in her palm for a long moment. She thought about another pendant, another character, another woman who had given a piece of herself to a child nobody else was looking at. 2 pendants, one from a Bronx kitchen in 1999, one from a Hangzhou village 400 years older. Both jade, both gifts, both given by women who had been overlooked their entire lives, and both given for the same reason: to stop the chain. 6 weeks later, New York. The internal memo went out at 9 a.m. on a Monday. By 10 a.m., the news had leaked. By Wednesday, it was a Wall Street Journal feature. Front page of the business section. The headline read, "From Janitor to Senior Counsel, How Whitfield and Hale Found Its Most Important Lawyer in Its Own Stairwell." The article had hard numbers. $860 million in confirmed new business, attributed to Bianca Reeves, in her first 90 days. 2 additional Asia-Pacific clients onboarded at her personal request. Both clients had specifically refused to sign with 3 other top-tier firms. They had only agreed because Whitfield & Hale was now the firm with Bianca Reeves on it. 6 other Whitfield & Hale janitorial staff resumes pulled from HR storage in the first 30 days. Under the condition Bianca had written into her contract, 3 of them had advanced degrees from foreign universities. One of them, a Honduran night shift cleaner named Mateo Vargas, turned out to have been a corporate accountant in Tegucigalpa for 19 years before he emigrated. He was now a junior associate in the firm's Latin America practice. He was earning a salary for the first time in his life that did not require a second job. By the end of month 4, 3 other top-tier Manhattan law firms had announced their own versions of the same policy. The press called it the Bianca Clause. The American Bar Association invited Bianca to speak at its annual convention. Eleanor Whitfield commissioned a portrait, not of herself, not of her grandfather, the founder, of Bianca. It was hung in the firm's main lobby, beside the portraits of the founding partners. The plaque underneath was written in English and in Mandarin. A single line. It read, Bianca Reeves, Senior Cross-Cultural Counsel. The room was always hers. The story went viral when Tessa Brennan, with Bianca's permission, posted a 40-second clip on LinkedIn. It was just 2 things: the audio of Chairman Wei's speech from the Hangzhou closing dinner, and one still photograph of Bianca's old cleaning cart parked against the wall of the 52nd floor hallway. The post hit 22 million views in 6 days. The hashtag #SheWorksHere trended for 40 hours. Then came the ABA convention. 1,100 lawyers in a hotel ballroom in Chicago. Bianca walked to the podium in a navy blue suit. Her own suit. Bought, not borrowed. She did not use notes. She spoke for 22 minutes. The narrator will only give you the closing 2 minutes, because that is the part the comments quoted for the next 3 years. She said, 6 years. I cleaned the floor of the room I now sit in. She paused. The room was silent. I want to say something to anyone listening tonight, to the night shift workers, to the people who carry the carts, to the kids in the mailroom, to anyone whose name has not yet been learned by the people who signed the checks. She looked up. You are not invisible. A long pause. You are unread. She let it land. There is a difference. Invisible means there is nothing there. Unread means the page exists, and someone has simply chosen not to open it. She drew a breath. So my job, for the rest of my career, is to open pages. She looked across the room. And my request, for the rest of yours, do not let them close yours quietly. Make a sound. The right room is listening, more often than you think. She stepped back from the microphone. The applause did not start politely. It started in waves. Some people stood up immediately. Others took longer. Within 30 seconds, every person in that ballroom was on their feet. Eleanor Whitfield was in the 3rd row. She was applauding. In the very back of the ballroom, Garrett Holloway was also on his feet. He had been quietly demoted, junior associate. The internal review had found that he had been mistranslating the firm's outreach to 2 other Asian clients for 16 months. It had cost the firm an estimated $40 million in lost or undervalued business. He had kept his job because Bianca, asked privately by Eleanor whether to terminate him, had said this: "Demote him. Do not fire him. Send him to the language program he should have done 10 years ago. Make him learn from a teacher he does not think he deserves. That is the lesson. Firing is just removal. Teaching is repair." Garrett had spent 6 months in an immersion Mandarin program in Taipei. He reported weekly to Bianca, by email, in Mandarin. He was not redeemed. The story does not pretend otherwise. But the man who had thrown an earpiece across a walnut table 6 months earlier was not the same man standing in the back of that ballroom now. He was applauding. He was, for the first time in his life, in the wrong room. And he knew it. Eleanor Whitfield gave one interview about all of it, a podcast, 6 months later. The host asked her what the firm had done right. Eleanor was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We did not do anything right. We did one thing less wrong than usual. We opened a file we should have opened 6 years earlier." She paused. "The lesson is not that we found Bianca. The lesson is that there are Biancas in every building in this country, and almost nobody is looking. If you run a company, and you can hear my voice, open the files, all of them, tonight." The ripple kept going. Mateo Vargas closed his first solo client 8 months after his promotion. A $65 million acquisition for a Mexico City logistics group. The client specifically requested him by name. Naomi Reeves transferred from her Bronx public school to a Mandarin immersion charter school in Manhattan, paid for by a scholarship Bianca had established in Mrs. Liang's name. 12 scholarships were awarded in the first cycle. Whitfield & Hale rebuilt its HR system from the ground up. Every hourly employee's full resume is now reviewed by a partner within 30 days of hiring. The cost of the change was $18,000 in software. The return on the change in the first year was 9 new client accounts, 4 internal promotions, and 0 qualified people gathering dust in a drawer. 1 year later, a Saturday morning in the Bronx. Bianca Reeves still lived in the Bronx. She had moved, but only by 12 blocks. A 2-bedroom apartment on the 6th floor. The window in the kitchen faced east. The morning sun came through it in long, slow rectangles. She was making pancakes. Her daughter Naomi, now 8 years old, came into the kitchen in pajamas. She climbed onto a stool at the counter. Around her neck, on a thin green chain, was the jade pendant Mrs. Liang had given Bianca 20 years earlier. The character on it meant peace. Naomi opened a small Mandarin children's book. She started reading aloud. She mispronounced a tone. Bianca did not look up from the pancakes. "Try it again, baby." Naomi tried it again. Got it right. They both smiled. The doorbell rang. It was Tessa Brennan, now a full associate at Whitfield & Hale, on her way to a Saturday client meeting. She handed Bianca a small wrapped package and left. Bianca opened it at the counter. It was a framed photograph. The Hangzhou closing dinner. The exact moment Chairman Wei was bowing. Bianca standing across the table. Eleanor watching from the side. And in the far corner of the frame, almost out of focus, was Garrett Holloway, caught in the act of standing up to applaud. Bianca hung it above the spice rack, where she would see it every morning. Now I want to talk to you, directly. If you are still listening to this story right now, it means something in it touched you. Maybe you were the smartest person in a room and nobody looked at you. Maybe you watched it happen to someone else and you stayed silent. Maybe you are a Garrett, and you know it, and you are not sure what to do with that. I am going to ask you to do 3 things tonight. 3 small things. None of them cost $1. The first one. Tomorrow morning, on your way into work, learn the name of one person you usually walk past. The doorman, the barista, the cleaner. Just one name. Use it out loud. That is where every single Bianca story starts, with one person saying one name out loud. The second one. Find one person in your own life who has been underestimated. A coworker, a cousin, a neighbor, someone whose page nobody is reading. Send them one message tonight, not a long one. Just tell them you see them. Tell them what you see. People go their whole lives waiting for that message. Be the person who sends it. The third one. Drop the name in the comments below. The name of someone in your life who deserves to be seen. One word, one name. That is all I am asking. I read every single one. So do the people watching this video with you right now. There are thousands of names in those comments already. Each one a person somebody finally looked at. Add yours. If this video meant something to you, if you felt anything at all, hit the like button. Share it with one person, just one. Subscribe to this channel because there are more of these stories coming. The world is full of Biancas. Wait, but how many brilliant people are we walking past every single day without even knowing? Nobody is invisible. They're just unread. So open the page. Learn one name tomorrow. That's where it all starts, firm. Wait, but how many brilliant people are we walking past every single day without even knowing? Nobody is invisible. They're just unread. So open the page. Learn one name tomorrow. That's where it all starts from.